And get started. Gonna check and make sure. Yep, we got a good amount of people attending. So today we have Jason Pittman, Regional Sales Manager from Yokogawa. And Jason, thank you for joining us today. When I mention Yokogawa to some of my customers, for the first time at least, they don't always think of Coriolis meters. And I was a little bit surprised when I heard that at first, since Yokogawa dominates more than one sector of the Coriolis market, especially when you look at Coriolis as a product globally. So here to walk us through a few of the highlights and exclusive benefits of using Yokogawa's Coriolis meter is our regional Jason Pittman. Jason, thanks once again. I'm going to transfer control to you right now.
Okay.
And go ahead and take it away.
All right. I think I have control here. So thanks, Andrew, for that. As Andrew mentioned, my name is Jason Pittman. I'm in the Chicago area here. I'm the Midwest field application sales specialist for field instrumentation. So basically where I live is anything on the field instrument side. As Andrew mentioned, most people know us for our pressure products, but I also cover mag meters, Vortex, our metal tube rotometers, the Coriolis meters, handhelds, as well as our wireless products. As Andrew mentioned too, today we're going to talk about the Rotomass TI. This is the latest revision of our Coriolis meter. And to kind of jump into this before we get really into the product itself and some of the benefits and features of it, just a quick review on the Coriolis meter itself and how they operate. So as you know, we've got two tubes inside the Coriolis meter, and they are oscillating at a resonant frequency via a drive coil. We'll show you a picture of that soon. And as a fluid or an air or gas or any media passes through those tubes, they start to bend and twist, which in turn is the Coriolis effect. And so it's been found that using this technology is, a very accurate way of doing a mass flow reading. You can also get volumetric flow, but you get density, and you can do some concentration measurements as well with this technology. And as I mentioned, when we look at oscillating these two tubes at the resonant frequency, we've got a drive coil at top. That's what's getting those two tubes moving. And then a pickoff on either side. These pickoffs are going to be important as the Coriolis effect takes over in the tubes, and they're going to be measuring the phase shift as well as the frequency shift. And with that said, you're looking at the tubes going in a Coriolis, kind of a bending situation. You're going to be out of phase. This out of phase is picked up by those pickoffs, and this then will equal a mass flow rate. On the flip side, as the frequency changes on that fluid, you're going to get a density measurement. So the three apparent things that you're typically getting out of a Coriolis meter is a mass flow reading, a density reading, as well as a temperature reading. And just to mention real quick on some of the construction on the Yokogawa Coriolis meter, a lot of our competitors and other items out in the industry will use like an adhesive to put these drive coils and pickoffs on the flow tubes. We actually braze ours on, so it helps for longevity in case there's kind of water hammer that might be happening to the meter. Now to take a look at the Rotomass TI, or Total Insight. This is a philosophy that Yokogawa has adopted on a number of their meters, including our mag meters. And what this does is it allows our customers to get an insight to the whole entire process of what they've got going on at their facility. And we started off, and we'll run through a few of these. We started off though by we've simplified the selection. We've got an expert guide. You can either do an easy setup or a detailed setup, or you could also have us pre-program it at the market. At the factory before it hits your facility. Process guard, we'll talk about that a little bit. Some maintenance manager, our customers really appreciate this factor of it, being that we're all starting to run a little lean and mean in our facilities. Data mobility is another feature that customers find very helpful and useful. And then some of the advanced flexibility of our meter itself. To look at simplifying the selection first, we've really kind of put this into an easy perspective. We have two different converters you see down at the bottom left-hand corner, the Essential and the Ultimate. We'll go over some of the features of those in a few minutes. But we offer 6 body types. So it looks like a lot, but realistically what it is just broken down by flow rates and pressure and temperatures and different situations. So if we look at the top left, we start with our Nano. That's our low flows, applications like dosing, very low flows down to grams an hour. The Prime body style that we offer, this is more of the traditional Coriolis meter you're used to seeing. And then we've got our Rotomass Supreme, and that's where we live quite a bit on difficult applications, some of our box-on-box design and some of the tube thickness, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We move on to our Intense. This is going to be for your high-pressure applications. Of course, food and beverage is a big industry that we're moving into. So we have a hygienic Coriolis meter as well for not only food and beverage, but we do get into the pharmaceutical or biotech. And then finally, our Rotomass Giga. This is those high flows, high pressure applications, barrels, hundreds of millions of barrels a day in an hour. Before I jump into some of the other features of the Total Insight, I want to mention just a couple quick things that are stand out on our Supreme body style. The first is that we have the thicker tubes than most of our competitors, and what this is going to do for you is it helps on a longer lifetime longevity of the tubes just by them moving back and forth and wearing over and over. This also allows us to not experience a span shift if you happen to have a big pressure swing in your process. On the flip side, on a thinner tube, if you do have that pressure swing, you're going to see some kind of push and pulls, some different things happening to your Coriolis meter. Not to say that these things are extremely fragile, but they do get effects by external process variables in your piping system. So this could also lead to some span shift. The other thing I want to mention on the Supreme meter is we actually have what's called a box-in-box design. So as you can kind of see here in this cutaway, there's an external box that is going to take any kind of bumps and bruisings and vibration in your process piping, and it's going to keep the internal portion of the Coriolis meter nice and stable, which is going to, again, allow for those tubes to react in the Coriolis fashion. As we mentioned earlier, if you happen to see some vibration going on, you could actually see a shift in the accuracy of that meter. Now, this is a great unit if you're, say, in a facility that's got a lot of trucks rolling by and you feel that bumping and bruising in the pipe system, a little bit of vibration. This helps also with having any kind of zero drift. I do want to mention this does not keep you from applying proper piping techniques. It's just a way of eliminating bumps and bruises and vibration that may be causing you a lot of noise in your flow signal on typical Coriolis meters. We talk about our two converters. As I mentioned, we've got what we call the Essential and the Ultimate transmitter. The Ultimate transmitter does have a lot more features, which we'll talk about, but they both have a lot of universal things. All of our converters come standard with a micro SD card that we'll talk about in a minute. They obviously are general purpose as well as explosion proof. We have the ability to have a number of different IOs inputs. One thing that I think is an interesting feature is these are universal powered. So at time of order, you don't have to specify whether you're 24 or 110 volt. This is going to allow you to keep some stocks in-house if you need to and not have to specify where you might be using them in your plant if you have mixed power. So those are some of the things that are going to be similar of the two things. They also both have the tube integrity option if you want to use that. They also have our total health option, which allows us for some built-in verifications that we'll talk about later. But then the biggest difference besides the features on demand is going to be our Ultimate is going to be a more accurate converter as opposed to the Essential. So we look over to the Ultimate, and this is where we jump up into not only having a better accuracy, but we have what's called features on demand. And you can see at the top there, it talks about future-proof, these features on demand. And what we mean by that is you can order number one of these things at time of purchase if you like dynamic pressure compensation that's going to require an external pressure transmitter to come in and feed that information to get a more accurate flow reading. You have the option of doing some batching, whether it's a single or dual phase valve situation. You could do that right from the Coriolis meter. Inline concentrations. Net oil, sometimes not so much in our Midwest area here, but you've got net oil computing that you want to find a water cut of oil maybe coming out of the ground. Some viscosity and caloric values also. Now, the reason we say this is future-proof is because these particular features on demand don't have to be purchased at time of when you place your PO. So if you feel like at a later date, you might have a situation to move your Coriolis meter to do, say, a batching. You want to get rid of a scale and you just want to open up a valve and fill, 55-gallon drums and then shut it off. You can then actually upgrade this particular converter by putting that key code in or license code in for batching. It would just be a purchase to JMI, and then Andrew would get you that key code. So to go through some of the other Total Insight processes that we have, for example, our process guard, we call this an event management. So we have thousands of different parameters that may or may not be important to you in your process. So we can go into this and pick one, say like empty pipe, for example. That might be something that's important to you. You're going to have a process go down. You're going to coat tubings, things of that nature. So what you can do with this event management, you can go in and not only just to set it as a a typical alarm that you get an output, but you can also address values to this. You can say, what do I want to do with this event? Do I want to have somebody physically go out and address it and clear the signal or clear the alarm from the converter? Do I want it to turn off when the event subsides? Do I want it to data log? I mean, you've got a number of different things that you can do. This is also based on some of these more event management symbols that you can see in the picture, whether you've got the red X that you've got an issue, blue being good. And some of our different customers have adopted this so they can take advantage of that portion of it. We talk about maintenance manager. This is one of the biggest features besides our micro SD card that our customers really like and appreciate is all these converters, all these meters come standard with our total health check. What this does is allows you to run a health check on the converter before you pull a meter out and think that something's wrong with it and send it back to Yokogawa for evaluation. This total health check is going to check things like the drive circuits, the sensor circuits. It's going to check the temperature circuits in the hardware. It's going to check for alarmings and things of that nature. There is an added feature you can put on these converters, which is our tube health check. This tube health check, again, if you've got an application that you've got a process that might be coating the tubes and causing restrictions in the flow rate, well, as you coat tubes, you start to decrease the ability to have a really accurate reading. So what this tube check does is you're able to actually set a baseline of what the stiffness of the tube is at time of installation, and then you assign some values as the percentages change from 1 to 5% of the thickness of those tubes, of the stiffness of those tubes. You're getting alarms out. So if you know that when I hit 3%, I better pull this thing out and hit it with steam or clean it out before I have a catastrophic failure. This is an advantage a lot of customers like to have. This, as we talk here about identifying any unnecessary recalibrations, again, it gives you the opportunity to pull this thing out and clean it and get it reading correctly before you have that situation that you need to send it in and recalibrate it. Micro SD card. This comes standard not only on our Coriolis meters, but this on our mag meters as well. So there's a bunch of features that this is going to allow for. You've obviously got the EEPROM and the internal memory, but this data duplication feature and backup and restoration with this micro SD card, what it allows you to do is once the Coriolis meter is set up, you can save that configuration of that micro SD card. So if you happen to be an OEM or you happen to have the same application throughout your plant, and you're setting up multiple Coriolis meters, you can pull that micro SD card out and put it into the next one and upload that configuration. So you only have to do it once. On the back side, if for some reason you have a catastrophic failure and you struck by lightning, something of that nature, and if the micro SD card's not damaged on that, you can pull the information from the backup and restore a new meter if you happen to pull something out of your stock. This micro SD card also allows you to do some data logging. What's kind of cool about this function on the data logging is you can pick events again, like we talk about the empty pipe. And if you want that to start data logging when that alarm hits, well, if you do hit that alarm, it'll also pick up 3 different events on either side of that alarm to kind of give you a little bit of insight, as I mentioned, total insight into what might be happening with your process. So this data logging then turns into troubleshooting because you can pull that micro SD card out, save it to an Excel spreadsheet, and then send that to Andrew or into Yokogawa, and we have some data to kind of back up to figure out what's going on with your meter, as opposed to the typical you call up and nothing's wrong with your meter at the time when you call. So again, this is going to help out with some of that troubleshooting and insight to your process. And then finally, we talk about advanced flexibility. We've got a number of different IO combinations. You can have up to 4 of them in your converter. We also have worldwide approvals. So, obviously we're a global company. So if you happen to be an OEM or sending something out on a skid, we can meet, CSA, some of the other Emitro, some of the other things. We talk again about the integrated universal power supply. So again, you can either have 24 or 110 volt, and you don't have to specify that at time of purchase. So in the interest of Andrew's time frame here, I just wanted to thank you for letting me give you a quick overview of our Coriolis meter. We've obviously got tons of other features and benefits that come with this meter and the Coriolis technology. And again, I just want to mention, beside the field instrument side, which is what I cover, Andrew also has the ability and the products to offer you on our analytical side, PHORP, some of our TDLS analyzing lasers, as well as our data acquisitions recorders. So he has that as a whole. And I appreciate your time. I don't think I've ever been on time on a presentation. So Andrew, yep, you took it back.
was great. Thank you very much. That you cover so much in 15 minutes, and I just think it went really well. So thank you everybody for coming. I am going to start the Q&A portion, and I'm going to just ask everybody a quick poll question. I'd like to get a little bit of an idea of who on this webinar has used Coriolis before. You should see something on your screen. Let us know what type of experience you have, or if this is the first time you've heard the word Coriolis. So, all right, we've got a good number of answers. Jason, just to start the Q&A, this is a little information for us. We've got some people with a good amount of experience,
Okay.
and some people starting to dip their toe in the water. I'm going to unmute everybody. Anybody that's on this, you can now scroll through the slides yourself. So right at the top, you can see how you can click through like this. You can scroll through. So if there was a question on a certain slide you had, then you can go backwards and take a look at it and ask the questions in the question section. We have a question from Kevin, and he's asking, how can you, I'm going to post this for everybody, how can you keep these from plugging up when using them for milk or for lime? Or for milk?
Milk with lime, yeah.
I'm assuming.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, really, to keep them from plugging up, you've obviously got to keep flowing in them, right? So if you're going to have a downtime, or you're going to, shut down for a while, you're going to have to push something through to kind of clean these tubes out. Now, one advantage we do have over our competition, Kevin, is, and I know we don't have a picture on this, but the typical way of doing a Coriolis meter is you've got your flange, right? And as you've got your tube going in, it's usually one tube going into the meter.
Oh, you know what? I think we do have an image of this.
Do you have an image of that? So,
yeah, I'm going to.
Okay. So what Yokogawa does is we actually, so as you go into that tube, there's then like a Y, and it splits off the flow rate into the two separate tubes. And when you do get a plugging situation, it's going to take the path of least resistance. So in this picture that Andrew's showing, the way Yokogawa does it is we actually braze the two tubes on the ends there. So you've actually got two paths going through the entire time. One that doesn't allow you to have a weak point where that vibration maybe, or that oscillating may be happening at the Y. And it also gives you an opportunity here that if you're going to do a steam flow or something, you're going into two different tubes. You're not going to hit the path of least resistance and not clean out the other one. So as far as keeping it from plugging, you're going to obviously keep your proper temperature, as well as if you're going to do a shutdown, you're really going to have to clean it out. That's going to be one of the ways that you can help. The other is installation. You could put this in a vertical installation, which is going to allow for a draining out of any kind of process if you do have a shutdown, and that helps keeping things from sitting in the Coriolis meter itself.
There we go. Yeah, sorry guys. Here's the slide 28. This is the image that Jason was talking about, how we put those tubes, how the tubes are in the process for Coriolis. So I'm going to go ahead and keep with the questions. This is another question. Does the Rotomass TI have Ethernet IP?
You know what? We do not yet. We have it on our mag meters. In our mag meter converter, the AXG converter is very similar to the Rotomass TI. So this will be the next product that then incorporates Ethernet. But keep in mind, there's always the possibilities of doing a number of different ways. I believe there's some products that JMI offers that gives you opportunity to, if you're using an Allen Bradley system, you can put an Ethernet, a HART Ethernet card in that DCS or PLC.
Thank you, Jason. That's absolutely right. JMI does have the ability to make your signal Ethernet IP. As of right now, Rotomass does not, but they're working on it, so certainly they will. A couple more questions here, and we have one of these questions is covered by my next poll question. So I'm going to ask everybody else this, and then I'm going to have Jason elaborate a bit. Regarding the maintenance manager, which was the tube health check and that total health check, can there be any documentation that's produced for recording purposes? And we have many people answer this question correctly with a yes. Jason, you care to tell us?
Sure. You're absolutely right, Andrew. You can have a document produced by this. Yokogawa offers a software called FieldMate. And this software actually allows you to do the total health check and then produce a document that will show a pass or fail. will show when you hook that up and do the document itself, you'll see at the top, it'll pull the model code, the serial number, some of that information into that document. And then you can print that off, gives you an ability to make some notes on it, in field mate if you like, but then you can sign that documentation. By the way, we also have that verification tool again for our mag meter side as well. So I know some of the municipalities that I've dealt with in the past, not just with the Coriolis meter, but with the mags, have seen that some of their governing bodies have accepted that verification as everything is, passed within the spec that it left the manufacturer, as opposed to pulling the meter out itself.
Cool. Thank you. So we have a couple more questions. Just want to remind everybody, we're happy to keep going. Want to be respectful of your time, but we will definitely keep going until at least noon with the number of questions that we have. I'm going to show everybody, this is the Rotomass Supreme. This is sort of the trademark of the Rotomass series. Just so everybody can see it, we have some spec sheets of some of the Coriolis on the lower slides that we didn't show you yet. The next question we have for everybody, or for Jason rather, do you have installation in weights and measures applications that require specific accuracy to be able to use the meter to bill based on the measured flow?
Oh, so I saw that question. I love it, because the answer to that is, prior to the Rotomass TI, we had what was called the Rotomass 3 series. And yes, we had NTEP approval on that with added accuracies, the ability to lock out the electronics, the ability to, wire and tag the external covering itself. And I have been told, and I've been promised, because I've been asking for quite a bit, I should have NTEP approvals come first of next year on this meter. So this will be on our Rotomass Supreme and Prime. So I'm super excited about that, because I've got a lot of applications. Believe it or not, I've got a custody transfer NTEP application in dairy industries. They're wanting to, especially here in the Midwest, they're wanting to use custody transfer, pulling milk out of a truck into a dairy, because currently they use scales, and in the winter they're paying for snow and ice melt, because that's all done by weight. So we are well on our way to the fact that confident about getting that. I know Don Niebel, who's on this call, he and I quoted some of these meters to a couple people already.
So you're saying sometime next year? Do they have any?
Beginning of the year. I'm being a little conservative, Andrew. I was told by our product managers I'd have it by the end of the year, but that's 4 weeks away. So I'm going to go ahead and just say first quarter, because things typically get dragged. Always get dragged when you're dealing with getting certifications. They've got to be done just right.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So that's, the next year's budget will be good to go on that one.
You got it.
All right, we have one more question so far.
Okay.
I'll project to everybody. Vertical mounting. So you can drain when no flow. Can you drain with no flow with a drain valve or a flush line? I think that's what they're trying to get at.
Yeah, that's vertical. Vertical up applications are always awesome. Number one, it keeps the pipe full, so you get a really good, solid, steady reading with good laminar flow. But again, like we talked about the milk of lime application, if you wanted to make sure that you're not plugging the meter and you turn off your process, you're going to have a flow come down as opposed to horizontal. Because keep in mind, on horizontal applications, if you're running liquid, you're always going to go tubes down, and if you're going gas, you're going tubes up. But vertical is, any manufacturer is always going to love you going vertical up.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm going to give people just one or two more minutes to file in any questions if you have. But I think this overall, we covered quite a bit. So thank you. Everybody's going to get a recording of this as well. So probably within next week, we're gonna send out a recording to everybody. But yeah, by the way, this can be used for training purposes. Feel free to share this video with anybody as soon as you get it. If anybody else had any questions, or if this answered any questions for anybody else as well. And I think that we are all good. Jason, anything final that you want to add?
No, I appreciate you having me on here. I want to make sure everybody remembers, not only do I have other products, but I am here local. So I'm kind of a unique principle for JMI, that I'm here local and able to travel and see customers, sooner than later if there's anything you guys need help with or applications you want to take a look at.
Yeah, and we'd all love to put our masks on and get on a site somewhere. We're happy to follow any protocol you have.
Sure.
So thank you guys very much. Thank you guys for coming. We will see you next week. And until then, have a good weekend.
Thank you.